And welcome back to Fully Equipped. It's Players Championship. Full crew is here. You know, boys, I would ask you if you were excited about the players, but based on the negative reaction that I've been seeing across the Twitter sphere, I'm gonna say no. But maybe you'll surprise me. How are we doing?
I'm pretty excited for it. I mean, I always think the press conference stuff is very interesting. Like we got Jay's press conference. We're not a general golf audience, so we don't really dive into like too much of that. But it was interesting to watch.
That was a cluster. Just that's all I'm going to say. I don't want to get into it, but yeah, it was a cluster. Jay's presser.
Yeah, not good. But I'm ready to see carnage this whole week, and we got new clubs too.
Yeah, we got some new gear to talk about. I always like the players. Players is fun. Like RB said, it's one of those courses that, I mean, if you're playing good, it's scoreable, but for the most part, it's a good test every year. So this is a week that I look forward to and always enjoy watching 17 for sure, like everybody else, every other golf fan. So Gene's excited, I can tell. He's just super stoked.
What's the point? I mean, half the field's gone now to live. So,
there's my man. There
it is.
Yes.
You know, I mean, you cheerleaders can rah-rah all you want, but come on, let's look at the elephant in the room. I mean, some of the best players in the world are not playing in this anymore. So,
what's the point? Golden Boy, Island Green. Who cares? What's the point?
But it was like Moynihan's press conference, everything. It's like, well, something may be happening, maybe not. It's just we're in this like netherworld of you know. I think I told you it's like I barely watch the PGA anymore, and I've never watched Live. It just kind of puts me in this horrible position, and I like watching golf, but I just can't get motivated. And even at the players, I mean, you've got 3 or 4 players, and that's it. I mean, it doesn't have the punch and the dynamic atmosphere that it's had in years past, obviously, and that's highly problematic.
He spits
hey guys,
the truth.
Has anyone here actually played Sawgrass beyond like on Tiger Woods video game?
I have.
I've never played.
Nope, I was expecting Gene to say like, yeah, I played Pebble Beach, I played there, yeah, I played Sawgrass, you know, brought the robot out, got a hole in one, kind of like that kind of thing. Man, just like straight up no. But you have, Jonathan?
I have, yeah.
Just once?
Jonathan's played everywhere. I mean,
I've not played everywhere.
On,
I've played a couple of golf courses in my lifetime, but yeah, I have played at Sawgrass.
Yeah, a couple of golf courses that are like insane on the list. So
let's not get into that. We got into that before. It embarrasses me. All right.
Oh, I can tell. The humble brags are only so many. Come on.
I start kind of moving around. I'll get all fidgety in my chair.
When you factor in the exchange, I could buy the membership at my local 9-hole golf course for one round at TPC Sawgrass. And to be honest, I'd rather take the membership.
Not worth it. It's not worth it. It's not worth it if you could play there on at a peak time. Go play somewhere else. All right. So before we get into players talk, we got to discuss Scottie Scheffler. You know, last week on the pod, we wondered aloud, could a mallet, a Rory McIlroy approved mallet, not one of these ones with more forward weighting, but a real, true, run of the mill mallet, the one you could find at your local golf store, could that save Scottie Scheffler's putting? And boys, I think we got the answer. It is a resounding yes. My gosh. You know, we've talked about it so many times on this pod, so I don't want to belabor the point, but we've said if Scottie Scheffler could just be normal, like around 0, not gain any strokes, not lose any strokes, he'd probably lap the field. And then the dude goes out and he gains over 4.5 strokes with the putter and he wins by 5. He is terrifying. You know, even Rory said it. He's like, you know, I would suggest Scottie use a mallet, but hey, look, you know, if he wants to keep using a blade, like all of us out here on the tour are totally fine with that. He gives us a chance. This is why. This is a terrifying scenario for every professional golfer out there. Scottie Scheffler with a mallet, with confidence. Yeah, it was fun to watch. You know, we've been talking about how the tour needed one of the big names to step up. So many, they're cool stories like the Jake Knaps and You know, those are fun stories, but you need your upper crust to step up and win a damn tournament. And Scottie won at Bay Hill, a proper layout. It's fun to see, but it just, that's what you want. You want to see Scottie with everything firing, because when you get that Scottie, that's when you know you're going to start to see some fireworks on the weekends at a major. And oh, by the way, Augusta's less than a month away.
I think Bay Hill is a course that, like, if you look at the leaderboard versus other events this year, and everyone's talked about some of the winners and all that stuff, and it's like, obviously, like, look, the A team has not stepped up early in the year like it did last year, where Rahm came out guns blazing, and Scottie as well. But the big thing is, like, there is such a variance in the type of golf course that these players are playing. Just like when Jake Knapp won a couple weeks ago, he hit 2 fairways, sprayed it all over the place. It didn't really matter too much in the final round. Obviously, like, he would have preferred to drive it better, but you could not have done that at Bay Hill and, like, even been close to the leaderboard. And we saw that at the top. We saw players like Scottie, who obviously separated himself, Wyndham Clark, Will Zalatoris. We saw these players that do step up under tough conditions. And I think that this is interesting going forward now. And it kind of begs the question, even at Pebble Beach, to be fair, like, weather wasn't great. You had Wyndham Clark again. You had Ludwig up there. Like, the interesting thing, it's almost like, and I know that people draw the F1 comparison and all that stuff, and I like to use it, but, like,
I was about to say, who's drawing the F1 comparisons? There's one guy on this podcast.
It's going to be me. But, like, there are certain tracks, if you just take away the Red Bull car, because it's obviously very good and it's beating everybody, did last year, and so far it has this year, but some courses or some players, just like cars, are better on courses that have, or tracks that have, more turns and more straightaways and that kind of thing. And, you know, you have this separation of, like, the type of golf that these players are playing, and Bay Hill not, like, separates the real ball strikers and the real drivers of the golf ball from the spray and pray, let's just hit it close this week and see what happens. And to me, that's the most interesting element, because once that has become what the tournament asks, we see those players rise to the top. And Scottie, even with 3 days of kind of, like, pretty good, okay putting, and then a great day of putting, like, he whooped the crap out of everybody. So it begs the question, is it the course? Is it his, like, obviously he's got a new putter, like, all of these all of these factors combined, it's like, you give him hard golf courses, Scottie Scheffler's going to separate himself, at least at this point. If we take this and extrapolate it, there's a good chance he's going to separate himself.
All right. Well, okay. I thought Kris was coming in with a take here, but this is what happens when you do a podcast. You're like, all right, you're waiting for the next one.
Well, I'll jump in and say this, and this is kind of my take on it. We were all wrong on this podcast. We've been, like, ripping on Sheffler for weeks, saying he's just got to stop testing.
RB has been ripping on Sheffler. RB specifically, RB has been ripping on Sheffler.
Well, no, but I've been agreeing with him. Like, he's just too much in his noodle testing, and he just needs to, let it flow. He found something he finally liked, and he put it lights out with it. And so I thought he was too much in his head, and I thought he was testing too much, and he was putting too much emphasis on a specific club being the answer. And guess what? The specific club, at least for that week, was the answer. So, I mean, I stand corrected when, you go on these things and you shoot your mouth off and, it doesn't turn out right. You got to own it. And it's fascinating, because it looked like, with all of his struggles, and the more he struggled, the more he got in his head, and RB talked about it and, posted, and I just assumed that he was going to continue down that path until he, like, cleaned it out. And he didn't. He kept working that method until he found something that worked. And once he did, then he decimated the field. And I'm in awe of that, because that's really a difficult path, especially when you're struggling. But he stuck to it and was very successful.
But one of the things I find interesting is like he said it after the fact, and I don't know if it was this week or like in his winner's press conference, is that he said by moving to a putter that was more forgiving, it actually had me focus less on being perfect and more on just making a putting stroke. And I think that's a huge element of it, because when you have a player that is worried less about like in their head worried less about the misses and focused more on delivering what they have to do versus the result, I think that's one of the biggest elements of why the search for the putter, the search for the grip, whatever it happens to be, plays such a crucial role. Because I'm sure, like, again, I'm sure you see it all the time, Kris. Like, in many cases, the goal is not to better the best. The goal is to raise that floor so players feel like, I'm not having a great day, but this is going to help me hit more fairways or hit more greens, or in the case of Scottie, hopefully make a few more putts where I just miss a little.
I mean, that's exactly it. And I mean, I heard that same comment and picked up on that when he was talking about, you don't have to be perfect. And essentially, I know I've mentioned this on the pod before, like at its essence, what is custom fitting? Custom fitting is, I jokingly referred to as mismanagement. The good ones are going to be good no matter what. But when you can manage that miss, and whether that be with a putter, with a wedge, with an iron, with a driver, whatever the case may be, like the overall average is going to be better. So 100%, like making that transition from the blade that he was trying to make work into something that's more forgiving, that just allows him to see the line, feel the speed, and make the executed stroke. And that's anybody in his camp that sees him testing a blade again should probably just go snatch it from his hand and run like hell.
Yeah. But Kris, I think you nailed something that isn't getting a lot of play right now. And I think a lot of it is just because Rory McIlroy suggests that Scottie should use a mallet. Scottie shows up with the same mallet. Scottie even joked about it. Somebody asked him, like, what's the deal here, man? Did you hear Rory's comments? Did you take them to heart? And he jokingly said, yeah, he had heard about him kind of through the grapevine. And, but he said he was already sort of on that track. But one of the things that I found really fascinating, and I know, RB, you wanted to point out a particular aspect of the putter. And by the way, if you missed last week's conversation on Scottie and the mallet switch, go back and check out the Fully Equipped YouTube page. Just go to @FullyEquippedGolf on YouTube. We have been uploading every one of our episodes for all of those sickos who actually like to watch us pod instead of listen to us pod. So go check out last week's episode. But the thing that I found most fascinating is Scottie talked about this kind of a simplification of his thinking, just trying to keep the mind as quiet as possible. But one of the things that I really believe helped him out last week, and he talked a little bit about it, was for a little while he was using drawing a line on the side stamp of his Titleist Pro V1 golf ball. And when he switched to the Spider, the TaylorMade Spider 2X putter last week, that putter has a black alignment line, single alignment line on the top of the crown, kind of right in between the true path alignment. And the line allowed him to remove the black Sharpie line that he would put on the side stamp of his golf ball. And it sounds crazy, but I really do think that him just simplifying that process and not trying to like be perfect, going back to just like how a mallet can allow you to, not be perfect, not having to focus so much on that line and just relying on the line on the putter and just setting his golf ball down. It sounds crazy, but I've talked to Jason Day about this before. And, Jason talked about going back and forth between line or no line just to sort of free him up when he felt like he was getting too focused on getting that line on his golf ball or on the putter right where it needed to be, and freeing him up and getting rid of it. And I truly think that made a huge difference for Scottie last week. Just a simple thing. And it sounds crazy, but I actually maybe like 3 or 4 years ago started doing the exact same thing. I used to line my golf ball up with the side stamp on the ball, and I just said screw it, and I just set my golf ball down And typically it's just with the logo and the play number facing me. Sometimes if even that's too much, I'll just go with it with this basically nothing, naked, just the cover of the ball that I can see, and just try and feel the line and be a little bit more creative. It makes a huge difference. And I got to think that made a big difference for Scottie last week. I
know this is going to make a really weird sound bite, but Jonathan, I am totally on team naked golf ball.
Team naked golf ball, baby. Let's do it.
I've done this for a long time. I've tried it for like, I think maybe 1 or 2 rounds and I hated it. And I always use the blank side of the golf ball, or if you look at like the logo, when you reverse it on the other side of the golf ball, it's almost like an X. So I am seeing the opposite side of the golf ball where I don't see anything. And I just kind of visualize the line based off the alignment on the putter. And I think, again, it's my personal preference. I think a lot of times, because what happens is, and I've talked to putting coaches about this as well, is some players want to be like visually over the golf ball, like right over the golf ball, which is fine. But in actuality, like your eye line it should be intended to be inside the line by like usually a couple inches. So now your eyes are trying to line up something that is parallel to something that is not 90 degrees to that line. And now you've got something where what you see behind the ball and what you see over the ball is different. And it creates a whole bunch of different types of like visual stimulation in your brain of like trying to align lines that are not parallel, because you got a golf ball that's curved. It's got a curved surface with a straight line on it. You're over top of it trying to use parallel lines on another object, which are not level to that surface, which being a golf ball, or like to the back of the putter in the golf ball. And all of a sudden, like you are messed up to all heck. And that is where I think it's so interesting, because I always remember the person who I can think of saying it was Justin Leonard. And he just said, like, I use the blank side of the golf ball. I think it was in like a What's in the Bag from like some magazine at one point. And I thought, okay, like I'm just going to stick to that, because my brain is too, like, I think of curved lines and all this stuff. I can't do it. And to hear that, I never heard that. Actually, that's the first time I've heard that he actually made that switch. That to me is like another thing that like it just frees your mind to just do what you naturally want to do, is see the line and hit the putt. That's all you got to do. Putting it seems so simple when you break it down like that. And it really does seem like he's kind of gotten into that, especially on Sunday. Like he got into the zone of just like, see the line, hit the putt, do what you got to do. And you got to watch out when it comes to majors, whether it be Augusta or PGA, or especially like this year at Pinehurst. I almost segued there, but I'm going to save it. Especially this year at Pinehurst, like if you hit greens and you just put yourself in the right position, you have the chance to just blow away the field, like Martin Keimer did. Like it's kind of nuts.
But before you transition, I have 2 questions. One, I want to know how Gene sets his golf ball up when he's putting. Is Uncle Gene somebody who relies on the side stamp, or are you somebody who's team naked golf ball?
Can I guess?
Oh, I'm total. Yeah, go ahead.
He's like with Mr. Robot's got to be a line guy, right?
Wrong. No, total team naked. And yes. RB summed it up perfectly, and that's because standing behind the ball is different than looking over the ball. And the other thing is you spend so much time trying to align the golf ball perfectly to a putter that you don't know when you're aligning the golf ball where the putter is in relation to that. And you're just adding complexity. Putting. So our robot can putt, and it's really fascinating when I've done putting tests with it, especially on artificial greens. It's very repeatable, but when you get out on a living surface, it changes, and it's wild. Like percentages go down of made putts. This is the exact same putt. The way the ball sits on the grass, not to get wacky about like Bryson's thing of dimples sitting in it, but it's true, and you can see it. But what I realized was it's an imperfect system in that you don't have you're measuring with your eyes, and they're just simply not accurate enough to align the ball to the putter in the way that you intended. And so because it's an imperfect system, why introduce that error in that's going to complicate it? And to turn the ball away, trust the line on your putter, and let's face it, a putt, the only things you can control are velocity and direction. Whereas with any other club, there's so many different things: angle of attack, contact point, face to path, etc. Now there can be some of that in putting, but at the end of the day, it's velocity and direction. And if you can control those for the first 2 or 3 feet by just looking at the face of the putter and releasing the putter, and you're on that line. And then if you miss the putt, well, it was a bad line. If you go 2 feet past or 2 feet short, you were slow. But you remove this kind of question of, did I hit that perfectly and align the ball to the putter? And it's just, we're just imperfect as humans, and it's I think it adds complexity and stress to putting, but I don't think it necessarily provides any sort of benefits.
There we go. Only other question I had before we transition to the next topic was, now that Sheffler has switched to a mallet putter, over under, I'll say 0.5 majors for this year.
Over.
I think he's going to get one.
I think he is too, and the reason is he's seasoned. If he wasn't seasoned, I'd still say there's a question mark. But he's already got one under his belt. What did he 5-putt 18 at Augusta and still win?
Yeah, it's insane.
The guy, and once again, not to eat some crow. This is a crow eating episode, but I remember all of us after Augusta, we were like, how's Scottie going to do, in the future? Is is this his run and then he's going to fade away? He hasn't faded away. I mean, he's a damn good player, and he's fun to watch. And if he gets the flat stick working, he could go on a real tear.
Yeah, I'm with you. He's going to win at least one this year, but I would not be shocked if he wins 2.
Now, speaking of majors, though.
There we go. Here it is.
We got
the king of transitions.
We got to let people know. Although, look, there's not a lot of chances in your life that you're probably going to play in a major championship. At least our listeners out there. But if you'd like to walk a major championship golf course weeks before said major championship, if you are a member of Inside Golf, and if you haven't, head over to golf.com, check out Inside Golf, because we have an exclusive membership program called Inside Golf, which gives you a whole bunch of benefits, including Switzerland golf balls, $20 to spend towards Fairway Jockey, as well as your subscription to Golf Magazine, and all of the back catalog of Golf Magazine as well, which is a ton of fun to look through. I've shown off all kinds of stuff from it before. And whether you like old school golf ads, lots of old golf instruction, course profiles, all that stuff, it's all there going back to the 60s and I think some late 50s stuff. So there's a lot of cool stuff in there. But anyways, if you are one of these members, you also get to take part in something that we are doing, which is called a bucket list experience. It's a 3-day, 2-night event at Pinehurst, just 2 weeks before the U.S. Open. It includes playing number 8, playing the newly opened number 10. It's not renovated because it's completely brand new. And you get a behind-the-scenes walkthrough of number 2, weeks before the U.S. Open takes place on that golf course. So you're going to get inside knowledge, talking about the golf course, walking the golf course, and not only that, but you're going to get an exclusive experience inside of the new World Golf Hall of Fame, the USGA Museum, and the USGA Club Testing Center. Hoping to be there, because that to me seems like the most nerdy, cool thing that you could possibly experience as a gear junkie. And you can go to golf.com/Pinehurst Experience to book your spot. If you book now, you get $1,000 off the original price. You can go by yourself or bring a friend and or bring a spouse. There's all kinds of stuff to do when it comes to just Pinehurst and the whole town and kind of area itself. So remember, go to golf.com/Pinehurst Experience, sign up there, because it is going to be one heck of an event a couple weeks before the U.S. Open.
Speaking of U.S. Opens, there is a possibility we could be talking about this next golf club that we're going to discuss. Very possible. So I wrote about it today on golf.com, and I said, which I feel like is pretty accurate. Titleist, when it comes to product releases, is about as predictable as it comes. Every other year, you're going to get either a metalwoods release or an irons release, and tied to that, if it's an iron year, you can expect that you're going to be getting Vokey wedges, and maybe a new Scottie putter release. The off years, in the other year, you're going to be getting drivers and golf ball being Pro V1. That's you can hang your hat on this. It's going to happen. But every once in a while, you're going to get something surprising from Titleist. And this, my friends, is what we're getting this week at the Players Championship. So thanks to our fearless leader at golf.com, Mr. Alan Bastable, he was able to snap some photos of the new Titleist TSR prototype. Now you might be wondering, TSR, it's already out. How can it be a prototype? Well, this isn't a standard TSR product. This isn't a driver. This isn't a fairway wood. Yes, friends, we're talking about a 2-wood. 13 degrees, smaller head than a driver, deeper profile than a fairway wood. Damn, it looks good. Looks really good.
Would you say that if it was smaller than a driver, that you could almost say that it's like a mini driver?
Ooh, maybe. Yeah.
Maybe.
We're talking about mini drivers. So I guess the obvious question before we kind of dig into the details, because I did get a chance to speak to someone up top at Titleist who provided all the fun details of what the heck this golf club is. For those out there that are wondering, what the heck is a mini driver? If you've never heard of that before, what is your response to that question?
To me, it's a golf club that is, as it sounds, a smaller golf club specifically designed to be mostly used off of the tee. Now, Jake Knapp and his extreme speed obviously showed that you can hit it off the fairway. But in most cases, it is a driving club that is intended to go not as far as the driver, but offer, because of its size, a little bit more forgiveness than a traditional 3-wood, even a stronger 3-wood. So you have this combination of something that is intended to launch lower, spin a little bit more, but not go as far as a driver, but offer, in most cases, some of the forgiveness benefits of that golf club, and to be also played at a shorter length as well.
Okay, well, I feel like that's a pretty accurate explanation, but I'm curious, Kris, is this even like, because people are always wondering, like, mini drivers, is this something that even like that a true spec would have in a matrix? It kind of feels like such a like a niche golf club that it really wouldn't be worth having like an endless supply of mini drivers for people to test.
It is. It's, I mean, as good as they are, and I personally like them, it's just not something that we're going to carry in the matrix, specifically because if we did, we would also have to have now a designated shaft matrix for these guys. And with where they are in their builds, how they're constructed, the adapter components that we have with Club Connects, we would have to allocate a lot of resources to like I said, a specific matrix. I mean, we have driving irons and utility irons and things, and a small dedicated shaft matrix for those, and that occupies a large space in the drawer and in the matrix. And now if we were to add mini drivers on top of that, I mean, there's just so much room on the wall that you can put product, and we kind of stick to what people historically come in looking for. So the drivers, the fairways, the hybrids, the potential utility irons for those of us out there, myself included, that struggle with hybrids, and then going into just the typical irons, wedges, putters, things like that.
Yeah,
but it's very similar
product.
to the.
It is a great product. I have one in the bags.
You explained this before. It's kind of like the UW as well. Like, it's such a specialty club that kind of fits in between categories. That it's very hard to fit. And from my experience working in the fitting environment before, whether it be a UW or like a mini driver, those clubs kind of, what we used to do is we'd have like one in the shop, and you'd get a keen customer come in, and they'd be like, I really like this club. And you kind of explain to them, like, these are the options that we can test if you want, but just so you know, like, we're not going to like be able to really get to that point. And in some cases, some players are so confident in the fact that it's going to fit in their bag, they're going to purchase it, and they're really not like concerned about it, which is fine. We like those customers all the time. But it's also one of those things where, like, you can't make promises. So I definitely get like why, especially when you have a lot of stores. I worked in a place that had 2 locations. It's a little bit easier versus, I think, what are there, more than 30 True Specs now? That's a little bit harder to like have 2 heads of 2 different mini drivers of different lofts, plus right or left-handed, and then you have to add in a shaft matrix, and it's like, it's such a specialty club. We're going to leave this to the customer to decide at that point. But yeah, it is. I mean, it's still a useful club, but again, it is, in the grand scheme of things, it is definitely a specialty golf club for the general golf market.
Absolutely. I mean, we have a few of our fitters that play, like you said, the UW, that have a couple of the mini drivers already in the bag. And I've already had guys reaching out, are we going to get this? Are we going to get this? Are we going to get this? And as much as I would like to say yes, logistically, the likelihood of that happening is pretty close to 0. But nonetheless, good golf club.
I would say, though, I know that we live in a very small gear world here, but if Titleist wanted to send one for like personal testing, like, I'd be happy to like send it back. You send a return shipping label, like, that's fine. Like, I just think the general public probably wants to know how this thing works. I'd love to share some.
It just feels like such a tease, though, and I say that because everybody probably started wondering when they saw these photos, like, oh man, a mini driver from Titleist. That's the one club I've always wanted. Because at the end of the day, let's be honest, golfers are creatures of habit. They have allegiances to brands. They may have seen mini drivers from other brands, but they're like, I don't play that. If Titleist made one, I would get it. So they probably saw these photos and they thought, oh my gosh, thank God they're going to bring one of these to retail, because why would they bring one out to tease the public? Well, my friends,
it does look like a finished product, though. Like, that's the thing. Like, Titleist did the 14.5 TSR 2 Plus.
Yeah.
And then I was asking around about it, and they were like, look, if we're going to make the tooling for it, like, we're probably going to release like at least a limited amount of them, even though in the case of Titleist almost always is right and left-handed. They only did it in right-handed for the 14.5 TSR 2 Plus. So to think of this and like look at it, and it is a cosmetically finished product. It is not a prototype. It has the TSR on it. It has the weight system. It has the industrial design on this whole thing.
Yeah,
to me, it reminds me of.
Yeah,
it reminds me of the Moto.
The JT irons.
Well, see, I think of the JT irons, but I actually think back to JT's 5-wood, which is the 9. He's still playing the 915 FD 5-wood, which is the 18 degree, which was part of, at the time, Titleist Moto program, which was like made on. I don't know what it stands for. I can't remember what it stands for, but it was like the Moto program where you could, like, if you were ordering through a custom fitter, you could get it. I meant to get into that like short form, but I completely blanked on what it meant. Anyone step in, please, if you remember what it meant. But they had it, and the 915 FD 5-wood was a very, very limited release to retail. Although they did offer the 3-wood to completely like open.
Does nobody here know what the Moto means? Am I the only one? I was waiting to just see.
Please tell me what it means. I completely forget.
Made only to order. Made only
to order. That's it. Darn. I was like, I thought the T was for tour of some reason.
I kept tripping up on tour. I was like, where does that? I
thought it was tour.
Tour.
My brain that's filled with dumb facts and
of all the stupid things that I remember in my brain, the fact that I forgot that disappoints me as a person. All right, disappoints me.
Your
deeply.
Podcast, RB. Come on.
I know.
Yeah. Whereas
but anyway,
J-Wall has
I think
a
it could be
dedicated cluster of cells with that information on it.
There's not very much in my brain, but I do remember Moto means made only to order.
But other than other than some Vokey wedges and obviously like Scotty Cameron putters, the only other time the Titleist has ever really done a prototype fairway that I've ever seen, or 2-wood or whatever, even driver, would be, you have to go back to the 907 D4, which never came to retail, but was a smaller head, or the F03, which was like the in-between fairway wood that like Scott and Love used, which was like a PT, but then they had the F03 came out and the F02, like the 906 F2
Gene
and the
remembers
906
that
F3.
one. Gene remembers that.
Gene's looking around like I'm talking just a different language here. But that was the last time that I can
What the hell is this, man?
That's the last time I can remember Titleist had a very specific club.
Once again, it's like talking about old golf clubs to me is like, Grandpa, tell me about the war. I mean, I want to. I'm interested in the 2024 stuff, not hearing about what happened in 1968 and how it influenced something in 1972. But hey, keep talking. I'm listening. I'm learning something.
I was born in 86, man. I'm not that old. Well, maybe I'm kind of old. My wife's spotting gray hairs on my head today. But yeah, like I can think of very...
You're referencing shit that I'm like, wow. So keep going.
See, this is the stuff that lives in my brain. The tour-only stuff that I never saw in person.
No, you can't.
Oh, that's a fair point.
All right. Well, okay. So let's get to the new product because it is interesting.
Oh, thank you.
So you're welcome. I'll make sure you get what you want, Uncle Gene. So this one, while it does have, as RB mentions, it does have all the official tooling. It looks like when you see it, it looks like a damn driver. It looks like a TSR4. Same weighting, has a front and back weight. It's only until you see the face and you see the long white score lines that you realize, like, oh, hold on a second, this one looks a little different. And so I had a chance to chat with Titleist head of tour JJ Van Wezenbeek about this new product, and he told me that it has a pretty interesting backstory. So if you think about the guys on their staff, like who are some of the longest players on the Titleist staff? I mean, JT's up there, obviously, but Cameron Young might be the longest. And Cam last summer started talking to the Titleist guys about trying to get another option in the bag for off the tee. Driver sometimes is just, in his case, again, this is a case that only a small group of players in the entire world have to deal with, but sometimes driver is too long. You need a golf club that can go that like 290 to 300 range. And lo and behold, this is a great week for one of those types of clubs. So having spoken to Titleist and kind of giving his wish list, JJ reached out to Tom Bennett, who is the head of Metalwood R&D for Titleist. And oh, by the way, Tom had been working on some 2-wood prototypes in the past. So they already sort of had a blueprint for what they could do on the design side. So after kind of we're going back and forth between Cameron and JJ and Tom, they created this 13-degree 2-wood. It has a deeper face. It's larger than even as RB mentioned, that TSR2 Plus fairway, which is the bigger version in the fairway wood lineup for Titleist. And this thing was released at TPC Sawgrass because they felt like this was a good week. If they were going to have a week where guys could test it out in advance of a major to see if it had any legs, this was a great week. And JJ mentioned some of the holes for in Cameron's, as an example for him, holes number 1, 2, and 18. He was saying that some of the holes have kind of up around 290, 300. The neck of the fairway starts to pinch. And that was sort of where he wanted to try and find a club that could match that gap, because he felt like that was a gap that he didn't have in the bag during this week. So he's testing it in addition to Cameron. JJ mentioned that a couple of non-staffers, non-contract guys are testing it, which is always the most fascinating thing. And they only brought 5 of these guys. 5, when I say guys, I mean the TSR prototypes. 5 heads. And they're all being tested right now. And there's a pretty good chance that Cameron's going to play it and maybe 1 or 2 other guys. So it is a legitimate option for this week, but nobody cares about that. Nobody cares about the tour pros. All they want to know is this thing actually coming to retail? And I have to tell you, it doesn't look very likely. I'm sorry.
Well,
yeah.
I have a question. I have a question for you, Jay. Well,
yeah.
This is my question. What does it replace?
In his case, it's just gonna replace like your standard 3-wood, because JJ mentioned
so,
that.
But I mean, can he hit it off the deck?
Yes. So and that was, and I kind of buried the lead here. Thank you, Gene. A couple of the more interesting aspects of this club is, one, it has a flatter sole. It's kind of tough to tell, but JJ said the flatter sole is to make this a more versatile mini driver, so that a guy like Cameron can hit it off the deck if he needs to. So it's going to replace his 3-wood in the bag. And he said that this is not a one-trick pony golf club. So while it is being used primarily off the tee, it can also be used from the fairway. And oh, by the way, those scoring lines, people were like, "Man, is this like a driver design with a fairway face? Is it titanium?" Yes, it is titanium. That is a titanium driver face with the score line. So the reason why Titleist added the score lines was because, again, needing some more versatility with his golf club, Cameron wanted the traditional fairway scoring lines versus the kind of ATI face design that they had on the driver. So that's why it also has a little bit of a different look. But yeah, Gene, this is going to replace the 3-wood in the bag for Cameron if it does go and play this week. Again, just because he can hit it off the deck and off the tee.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's where I'm curious from a performance characteristic standpoint. What does it launch and spin versus this 3-wood, and also what are the gear effect patterns on off center hits? Those are the kind of things that I geek out on, because
I'd love to tell you we could get one, but I don't think we are, because JJ made it seem like that these aren't coming to retail. Not to be the buzzkill here, but he did say that this truly might just be, and this is a quote, "This truly might just be a prototype that goes nowhere. It was a thought experiment with R&D. We had some inquiries from players looking for something as a primary tee club that was less than driver." And then when I kind of pressed a little bit towards the end, he said, "I just compare this project to the Justin Thomas irons we've made in the past. This is the stuff we can learn from, but we may or may not see in the future. There's some unique requests that might not be retail centric. We're just trying to learn as much as we can about it." So, and I don't know if that's just Titleist's way of trying to throw me off the scent, but
it's also, I mean, and Kris can chime in on this. How often does a guy come in and go, "Yeah, I got a problem. I hit my driver too long, and I need a club to hit it only 290, 300. It's just like,
I said, first world golfer problems, man.
It's totally first world golfer problems. I get that occasionally, just because I do work with some tour players and some
Kris
high level
amateurs.
And I am definitely not part of that group whatsoever. I mean, I'm not short, I would say, but at the same time, like, I am definitely not in those echelons of long players by any means.
He's a long bomber. Don't play him for money.
Yeah. Just knuckleballs that roll in the right turf conditions.
There's a reason he has a lot of putters, though.
I do have a fair amount of putters, yes, because I suck at putting, and I'm just searching for something that'll work at any given time.
Oh my gosh!
Here's a little thing though for you. Okay, I got this weird conspiracy theory. Okay.
Oh gosh!
Because
tinfoil hat moment. Here we go.
I'm gonna put my tinfoil hat on here. I'm just gonna lock into my weird, unusual,
lean into it, RB.
Dark web podcast and just like let it rip. But what I think could be interesting about this is the fact that if we go back to the end of last year and we talk about the golf ball. Now, Gene, I don't know if you're going to get a golf ball debate, but if we're going to talk about what the R&A and the USGA said about the golf ball, they talked about, and they made this little note, we are going to look at driver size, which makes me think that this is something that Titleist R&D might have had from a tooling perspective thought about previously, because
this is JJ, a major tinfoil hat, and I am loving it, RB.
I'm just going down the dark web of weird things. Yep. And so because they were talking about looking at driver size, I can imagine that at some point Titleist R&D, because if you've followed me along at social media at all, at some point, there's all kinds of like patents out there that you can access completely freely if you know how to search them up. It's not some secret thing. Just go to Google and look it up, and you can start diving into these things. But there's a lot of patents out there around golf clubs. And for them to bring out this smaller titanium club that is, I would say, definitely not 300 cc's. It's nowhere close to like the TaylorMade mini driver size, judging on the size of the hosel relative to the rest of the club head and the heel to toe length and all that stuff. So let's say it's 225 to 245. Now, obviously, the USGA, that seems like a pretty big stretch. But if they were to say 350, well, now all these OEMs have to start developing clubs back in this size that bring in a lot of technology to still offer as much forgiveness as possible, but obviously kind of slow down the distance. So to me, this is like two parts. One, pros were looking at this, and the R&D department has already looked at smaller headed titanium club heads for use off the tee. And they said, well, why don't we, as a test, because they're asking for it, let's create this golf club, 13 degrees aloft. We can add that to the tooling. It's not a huge thing. We CAD it out, and they do that whole bit. So let's do that, bring it out, and then for the future, we get an idea of launch characteristics based on these based on what these players are going to test with, and obviously what they're going to test with the TPI. And the end result is, hey, this is a really cool data set. We can apply this to maybe making 350cc drivers if the USGA or R&A ever implements that for professional golfers. But for the time being, which is the here and now, we have this very cool two-wood which players can utilize on golf courses where they need a club that doesn't go as far as their driver. And down the line, say at Augusta, allows them to have a golf club that, because of its center of gravity location relative to the shaft axis, creates more workability. So when they get to Augusta, they've got this sweet-ass club. They can get to the 13th tee and just rip a draw around the fairway. So there you have it. There's my conspiracy theory. So yeah, that's all I got. But I had it sitting in my head all day because of this.
It's an amazing tinfoil hat.
USGA, R&A,
right
they got.
there.
I mean, like, look, the R&D teams of all of these companies, they factor in all of this stuff for down the line. They do that. You can diving into patents recently. Now, look, these are like patents applied for by these companies. This is not stuff that I'm just like throwing at the wall and being like, let's hope this sticks. So this is stuff that they're willing to put out there in the open. So because of that, it kind of makes me believe that these companies are really thinking about potential for down the line as far as technology from manufacturing, as well as what the rules might include, which is where like my tinfoil hat theory comes from, because it makes me think that, this could be really cool down the line. But one or the other, we got a cool club right now, and I'm really glad that we got to talk about it.
Yeah. And I felt like that was a fun conversation right there. All right. Before we get into the interview, yes, we got to do Floyd Cup Hotline. You know the number. Hopefully you do. 602-935-4974. And again, that is 602-935-4974. Leave us a voicemail, and we will get to your question on a future episode like we're going to do today. Coach, I think we have 3 this week. And if so, let's get to number 1.
All right. We do have 3, in fact. And number 1, I will say, if you have my home area code and you start out shouting out where I grew up, you're going to make the podcast. So we'll let this.
Now everybody's going to do it. Damn it.
This is Jordan Sukup from sunny Rochester, New York. I was curious about talking about all the speed increasing from these amateur golfers coming up in the ranks, the balls roll back. What would be the best driver head for center strikes on 120 mile per hour or 125 mile per hour club head speed that we're seeing? I know it's not for everyone. I'm a higher swing player. Would love to see what the best all-out distance driver would be for 2024. Thanks.
I guess the question is, Gene, what's the lowest spinning driver that we had in our driver test?
Yeah. It was the PXG.
That's an easy one. PXG 0311 Tour. Woo.
Yeah, that block.
You got
Black
a
Ops
buck 20. Black Ops Tour. You are going to smoke that, my brother. So just give it a shot and see. Put it in 8 or 9, depending on what your angle of attack is, and let it fly. It is. And the other thing, not so much in the Tour, but in the the Black Ops, it was pretty forgiving as well. And the Black Ops was really low spinning.
I was about to
I
say,
would
yeah.
I would test both of them. If you want a little bit of forgiveness, then I would look at the Black Ops. If you are a consistent player and strike it on the screws, and you just want pure distance, look at the Black Ops Tour.
Yeah, it's a good choice. That's what I was going to say. Plus, their face technologies. I mean, again, we discussed it on the driver Insights podcast. Again, if you haven't listened to that one or watch it, go check it out on the YouTube page, or go check it out on wherever you consume your podcast content. Hour and a half of us just absolutely going deep on all the different drivers, and we did say, even though the PXG stuff is more on the more expensive side in relation to some of the other stuff that PXG's released recently, that face tech is so worth it.
One more option. I was say one more option.
I was just going to say.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say real quick. The Cobra had low spinning as well, so they're worth looking at as well. Sorry, Irby, go ahead.
No. I was going to say we didn't test it this year because it was a last year product. But if you are someone who hits it all over the face a little bit more, and we talked about forgiveness in the PXG, but if you get yourself a G430 LST and you want something that is considered technically lower spin, but really, really stable, you slap one of those in your golf bag. There's a reason a lot of players on tour who are not staff players with Ping are playing that driver. So I just want to throw that out there because it's one that we kind of forget about it sometimes. And I say forget about it because it was as a product from last year, but it is still something that is out on tour, used by a ton of players that are looking for that low spin option. And as far as stability is concerned, it's pretty darn hard to beat a Ping in most cases.
That's a good one.
That club especially, that club, I would call that the forerunner of kind of the low spinning max clubs that we're seeing this year. I mean, you could take that club and just call it Max Plus or whatever, and have something similar to a lot of the offerings this year.
And if I can add my 2 cents to that, I've got a couple guys in my stable that are in that upper 120 to 130 range. Actually just had Matt Neesmith from the PGA Tour in last week, and we narrowed it down for him. He's in that 120 category as well for club head speed, and we ended up landing on the QI10 LS and also the Cobra Dark Speed LS. And so we built him up 2 of those, and he's got he's actually got the TaylorMade in play at I just totally blanked on the tournament this week.
The players?
Yeah,
remember?
The players.
Exciting
the players.
The Island Green one.
I know. I just wanted to get Gene's hot take on who cares. No, but Matt has the LS in play this week, and he was texting me earlier, telling me that it is performing very well around there. So he's excited to have that in play. But I also have one of my fitters on staff that puts up close to 200 miles an hour of ball speed, and he is playing the Triple Diamond from Callaway, AI Smoke Triple Diamond.
Another really, really good product. Yeah.
It came down to him between QI10 LS and AI Smoke Triple Diamond, and he saw the dispersion with PXG a little bit worse than the other 2 at his speeds, and the AI Smoke was a little straighter compared to his start line, whereas the QI10 LS wanted to start a little right of his intended start line. So depending upon what you're looking for at those speeds, a couple of good options out there for you.
All right. Number 2, Coach, if you please.
Yeah, so I picked this one because it sort of answers a question we've seen on social, just to give people a bit more reasoning to why they didn't hear about certain things on robot testing. And it turns out it kind of comes into play with one of our major topics this week.
Yeah, I just listened to your 24 driver podcast. Excellent stuff, and it's encouraging to hear all the innovations that have been made and what's good out there. Curious why Titleist was not tested. I don't know, that must be something in the industry, but curious. I didn't recall hearing anything in the disclaimers in the beginning of the podcast on the testing, so just curious about that. I do favor a Titleist TSR. Thank you.
Yeah, I think RB already actually mentioned it when we were going through question number 1, which is, so the way that we do testing is we test the newest product out there. and anything within 6 months of being released from when we run our robotic testing with Gene. And the Titleist products are a year old. So at least on the every other year, you're not going to see Titleist included, just simply because it's considered it's current product. It's not old, to be clear. But again, we're looking at the newest product out there. And so for one of those years, we have Titleist included, and the off year we don't. Maybe we just start including Titleist in the data so that we can see where they fall with the current stuff that's in the marketplace for now 2024. But yeah, when we're doing it, we're just looking at all the new gear from the guys that are doing yearly product releases, those being the TaylorMades and the Callaways and those ones. So hopefully that answers your question, but we will definitely get to the new Titleist drivers because this is a driver year and we'll be seeing something, I would guess, maybe in the next like 3 to 4 months out on tour.
Cool. All right. Last one is a gentleman looking for some clarification on the definition of answer style putter versus a blade.
Hey guys, Scott from South Carolina again. Had a question. I was hoping that y'all could answer for me since I hear it on your podcast a lot. Just wondering when the heel toe weighted putters, answer style putters, became referred to as blade putters. Blade putters to me has always been the heel shafted, George Lowe, Wilson 8802, Arnold Palmer the original. Those kind of putters have always been the blade putters, and answer style have been heel toe weighted putters. So just curious as when that change happened and why. And then, just again, really appreciate all y'all do. Thanks a lot.
That's a good question. I don't know when that change occurred. I think a lot of it had to do with the 8802 style. As you said, that used to be the quote unquote blade style putter. But I think as those started to get phased out, I think it just was like, well, who gets the blade moniker, and it was just sort of handed over to the answer style. I mean, I don't know. I wish I had a better answer to that one about like when that happened, but it did. It feels like as the 8802 started to kind of phase out of putter matrix, that's when you started to get the word blade attached to anything that basically wasn't a mallet.
I would almost say historically it was probably, and I know Scottie mentioned this, I think in the podcast you did with him when he kind of got interested in putters, was when the first Zebra came out, what made it very unique was it came with its own head cover, which was like really wasn't a lot of putters that did that. So to me, like those were kind of like the first mallet putters, like that got bigger and got more rounded, and then Odyssey started introducing stuff in like the early 90s. So basically anything that wasn't, I'd almost say it was like, it'd be like a measurement thing at this point. Like anything that is, say like less than 1.5 inches from the front to the back, to me is still kind of a blade, because you can call them like blade pluses or like larger blades. Scotty Cameron calls it even like the Newport 2 Plus. But then as soon as you get into something that's more rounded, or what some people would call organically shaped, that becomes the mallet. I would, to me, it's someone who is am I considered an elder millennial at this point? But I grew up in that age where like people still had those types of putters a little bit. I instinctively called them a heel shafted blade. So there was like the blade, the heel shafted blade, and then you got the mallet, and then you got the oversized mallet. That to me is like the 4 categories of putters, other than the long putter, which is just like basically a mallet style putter with just a different neck or hosel configuration.
I mean, I think you could almost chalk it up to a lot of things as far as like the evolution of gear and just how you categorize and differentiate. So, I mean, something along the lines of, you still refer to the club that you hit out of the fairway after your driver. You'll hear people talk about fairway metals versus fairway woods. And so many people are fairway woods, even though they are now made out of metal. Or
they're fairway woods, damn it, and I'm never giving it up.
Exactly. And like we've kind of talked about, like how you were to differentiate and categorize different iron types. Like, oh, this is game improvement. This is super game improvement. This is a blade. This is a cavity back. And having all of these different labels and how to identify different things. I put that kind of in the same category as putters. I mean, you come into a True Spec studio and you look at our putter matrix, and there's 40 different shapes, and everything from a heel shafted blade up to a extremely super game improvement high MOI mallet with all of the different discretionary weight options and so on and so forth. I think it's just kind of what you get acclimated to when it comes to differentiation of product and what you kind of learn when you're first kind of getting into identifying gear. I don't know if there's necessarily a timestamp where you can go, yep, this is it. This is now a blade putter. At least I can't think of one. I'm sure Gene has some commentary about that with all of the gear that he has had to sift through. Gene, what's your hot take on the blade putter?
Yeah, I'm with the caller. I think the terms have been bastardized in that the answer simply is not a blade. If you look at it truly from what a blade was, there's just no comparison from a blade to an answer. But I agree with you, Kris. I think that the nomenclature has evolved, and I think that Karsten at Ping had a lot to do with that, and he almost created he created a new category with this toe heel weighted putter, and our language just kind of evolved to call that a blade. But I'm going to screw myself here after my earlier snarkier comment, but if you know anything about history of golf clubs, you understand that this isn't a blade. That there are products out there that were blades, and this deserved its own categorization. Heel toe weighted putting implement. I don't know. I'm tired. It's late at night. We're recording this.
But Gene's ready to go to bed. We all are.
I'm ready to go to bed.
To your point, Gene, though, I would say, I would call it like a plumber's neck blade, even. Like, that would be one of the other ways, because of that neck was so unique to the answer putter that that was to me, when I first started, that was like the reference point. It was called the plumber's neck style putter, because if you wanted a blade, it was heel shafted and it was a little sticky thing.
And Odyssey refers to the plumber's neck as a crank hosel.
Crank hosel.
No, it's
but a blade is just it's linear. It's the CG is pushed all the way forward. It's not very forgiving. Like a heel toe weighted answer style. The CG is back. The CG is, and then the horizontal CG between toe and heel, the MOI is high compared to it's just like there's just no comparison between the two. That's my point.
Yep.
I think it was lazy when we started calling answers blades, because what we did is we simplified it, and so now answers are blades, and then there's mallets, and there's the language needs to be a little bit more detailed. But we're so far in the weeds on this conversation. I mean, this is, most people are they've tuned out, they've rolled their eyes back, they're doing something else. Because
I was actually just waiting for kids these days call anything that's not a mallet a blade, and gosh darn it, I hate it. That's not.
Let's just kill this episode.
I could care less. I just think it's lazy. That's all. That's
it is lazy. Let's just leave it at that. It's lazy. I think there's a easy reason. It's just you had to find a name for some putter to be called a blade, and that version, the answer style, picked up the mantle. It's a blade, and here we are having a conversation about how long did we spend on that one? Like 10 minutes talking about the differences. Lovely. And that'll do it for this week's episode of Fully Equipped. If you're watching us on YouTube, and I guess if you're seeing our smiling faces right now, you are, make sure you like and subscribe to the page to get all of the great gear content from Fully Equipped moving forward. That'll do it for this week's episode. Thanks as all for listening. We'll see you around.